And finally, for those of you who like to download the most granular cost and usage report, either to integrate with third-party data or embed into your own BI solution analytics tools, definitely leverage our billing and cost management data exports. So with that, you will be able to control what data gets to be included in each export with column selections and row filterings, both in a SQL interface and a console experience.
So what we have is really three classes of AI spend in our organization. First would be our training costs. So this is a mix of on-prem dedicated GPU and storage that we have for training our models, as well as expansion into cloud providers for sort of burst. And we have been bursting a lot over the last 2 years. The role of FinOps here is really to validate assumptions and to work with the team and finance to make sure that we can make the business case, the business value needed to go into cloud for continued training.
All right. Well, welcome to the last FinOps Summit of 2023. I am J.R. Stormont. I lead up the FinOps Foundation as executive director here. And today's summit is, it's kind of a culmination of a big year for all of us. We were chatting before we started about how exhausted everybody is from conference travel and sickness and all the things, and also really excited about the new year and taking a bit of a break in the meantime. We are going to be coming back to you in February with the next summit, but this one is really great in a few ways. First of all, we're going to talk about AI, but not AI's impact on FinOps, but more how AI is impacting cost and how to manage those costs from a FinOps perspective. We're going to do a recap on AWS reInvent, which many of you were at, many came back from, hear about all the announcements there. We're going to talk about things that are happening in this community over the last year and in 2024, and then wrap with some updates around various parts of the framework and upcoming updates to the FinOps definition for 2024. So fine print, always everybody's favorite part. Our code of conduct we take very seriously. First and foremost, let's treat everybody respectfully. Please be kind and inclusive of others. We want you to contribute, share ideas in the chat. At the end, when we have conversation, jump in, but also leave room for others. We also do ask that you treat not just others, but other companies, other competitors, if you're in here with those, respectfully. Don't say bad things about folks. And for those of you who are vendors, please avoid sales pitches. We want to hear about your best practices and learnings and stories, but don't jump in with a start a free trial here sort of message. Last bit on this is, from the antitrust angle, please don't share any confidential information in any of our forums or anything that would be considered anti-competitive. But we are the FinOps Foundation. We are focused on advancing the people who do the work of FinOps. That means the FinOps practitioners, the engineers associated, the finance people, procurement, those working in the ecosystem. We do this through community and connections. This event is kind of our flagship event. We've been doing these for about 4 years. Every month to bring people together to talk about best practices. We do it through education and training, which we're going to touch on a bit later as well, and with best practices and standards through things like the Focus Open Cost Initiative. We're a part of the Linux Foundation, which means we are a membership-based trade association. We're funded by training as well as corporate memberships, but free to join for individual end-user practitioners. And our staff, who many of you know in our meeting, are now in 7 different countries around the world supporting you. So look out for those folks in your local territory. So I wanted to start out with a little amuse-bouche, sorry for butchering that word, for those of you who actually speak French, about your New Year's resolutions for FinOps next year. So feel free to drop these in the chat. Want to hear what you all are looking at doing. I'm assuming we'll get both a mix of serious and playful ones, but remember the code of conduct when you jump in there as well. So watch for those in the chat. We'll revisit some of those as we go. So this last quarter was nonstop for a lot of you and a lot of us. The FinOps team globally participated in literally dozens of events in the last quarter. We hosted at least a dozen of our own meetups in places like Sydney and Sao Paulo, thanks to Regina and everybody who focused on those meetups. Road shows in places like Munich and London and DC. We did attach events at Google Next in San Francisco and Microsoft Ignite. We did a bunch of events at reInvent this year. Everybody's very excited and exhausted for more coming in next year. We're working on the strategy for the 24 events. Watch as those come out. We're going to continue to work in top regions around the world with a mix of meetups and road shows, culminating, of course, in the large events. So These are the flagship events next year, which are FinOps X in San Diego, which is going to be a similar format to last year, just a bit bigger. We are keeping it small enough that you can still turn to anybody there and talk about FinOps, and hopefully folks who really understand and know the space. That is an early bird pricing for tickets. We're seeing a lot of people look at that as sort of a FinOps team offsite location. So bring in a set of their folks, their FinOps practitioners, or relevant engineers and finance people. We also have the FinOps X Europe event happening. We had a lot of you express interest from outside of Europe in attending this. We do think space is going to be very limited at this event. Tickets are not yet for sale, but I think we will likely end up giving some preference to attendance to those based in the region there. But excited to get you, as many of you as possible, at both or either of those events. And the most important part of FinOps X, well, I guess there's two most important parts. One is the content, which is we're opening the calls for proposal. The other is the people and the networking. The people and networking you got to be there for, but the content CFP is now out for this event as well as others coming up. So please do put in your content ideas for this. We're looking for deeper level content, 301 content. We are going to have some intro 101 content, but really heavily skewed more toward the how do you implement? What are the lessons learned? We want to see architectural diagrams of your FinOps services. We want takeaways. We want deeper things that people can go and implement on the back of that. So check out the website for filling that out. We're going to be running those applications for the next couple months. And we are also in the 4th year of the State of FinOps survey. We've already had 900 people take this. Looking to get a few hundred more people before we close the survey. This is going to take you about 20 minutes to complete. Please do. It's the best way you can give back to this community each year. It helps with benchmarking. It helps with what we're going to focus on next year. It gives data for you as practitioners. The industry looks at this around things like what are top pain points for practitioners? What are top capabilities? Spoiler alert, we are seeing some of those capabilities and pain points move around. So we're excited to share those in February when that data is finalized. But please take a pic of this and take that survey if you can in the next couple of weeks. Great thing to do as you wrap up the year. As always, thank you to our premier vendor member partners who help support the foundation alongside all the training and other efforts that you all do. We are going to be hearing today from AWS, and in this Q4 season, what we'll do, and we'll probably likely repeat next year as well, is a tour of the cloud shows. So we did Google Next first in the September Summit. We did Microsoft Ignite in November Summit. For those of you who remember, I was still at Ignite when that happened. My hotel Wi-Fi dropped. Hopefully it'll be better for this one. And we're going to cover AWS reInvent on this summit. And thank you to all of you who participate there. So quick recap from my end on reInvent. This was my 10th reInvent. And I tell you, I'm always a little bit dreading going to the conference. And then I get there and I'm always so excited about the people and the stories and the conversations. I think there were 65,000 roughly people there this year. Pro tip from my end, I try never to leave the Venetian because there's so much happening. But even in that area, there was a ton of FinOps interactions. We saw our evening event, which had 350 people at it, FinOps community. There were great things. If you see in that chalkboard there, that FinOps was written and kind of all over the place. AWS did a great job of cost management, cost optimization, FinOps related content. I think there were at least 15 sessions. Yuri from the Kudos team was kind enough to invite me to speak in his breakout session along with Mike from Dolby. That was great to see a lot of the community. And there were also informal meetups, a shot on the bottom of FinOps leaders. And the thing that we started this year that I was most excited about that we're looking to carry forward into other cloud conferences was this event. So we did a meet the AWS experts where we brought in product managers from AWS as well as other cost leaders from folks like the Optics team and the TAM teams, CFM teams, cloud economic teams to get together with FinOps practitioners in a smaller forum. This was 175 folks. It was actually more than we expected. So it was a little less one-on-one than we wanted, more small group conversation. But coming in with people like Rick Ochs there in the photo or Roy Woolman, you're going to hear from Rick here in a minute on those updates, to sit down in small groups and talk about the features that are coming out, the data that's coming out, and get better context about not only practitioners hearing what was happening, but also these product managers and product leaders there getting rapid fire feedback from a set of practitioners in the room. So we found it really valuable, hoping that Rick and Bowen, who are going to be speaking here in a minute, can share their insights as well. But this is something that we're looking to continue forward into, hopefully next year, other cloud conferences, and tighten it up as well next year for reInvent. So We'd love to get your feedback on that. If you attended or if you want to attend next year, put your hand up, let us know. Really great new chapter in how we are approaching interacting with FinOps teams. Now, keynote. I didn't get to see this in person because it's hard to get into those even in person. But did anybody else notice that Werner's keynote had a lot of themes related to cost and FinOps, a lot of similar and familiar sounds. I think this was the first keynote that he did since 2012 where he focused so heavily on a cost theme. I can't tell you how exciting it was just like for the space and validating for the community and all the efforts that we've done just to hear so many themes coming through there that this community has been pushing forward. He talked about this idea of a frugal architect, which we want to double click a bit here on in our own analysis. And what I loved in this caption here, you see at the bottom, we screenshotted, he talked about how cost and sustainability, critically, two areas that we are integrating now into the FinOps framework and updating, we're going to hear about later, should be weighed at an equal weight alongside all these other things that engineers typically focus and lean so heavily into. There were so many great screen grabs from his presentation. I grabbed a couple here that I just felt really relevant and eerily aligned to so many things this community talks about and works on. The idea of knowing your costs and putting those out there, the idea of getting into measuring and defining meters and tying those back, not just to technology, but to the business. He talked a lot about following the money and how you should align your unit economics to revenue and look at economies of scale and unit economics where you're comparing revenue to cost. He talked about how shining a light on cost drives better behavior. There was a lot of conversation about this aspect of introducing constraints and the innovation that brings a consistent theme and how we get cost-aware architectures into the FinOps practice. There was a lot about how to align cost and sustainability around measures for making better decisions. We talked about the iron triangle as part of that. But ultimately, a lot of validation here. And do we have Udam on the line as well? Let me get into this. 1 second, we'll get Udam in here. So Werner put up
Hey, Joe.
Oh, hey, Udam, I'm going to pass to you here in just a second. I want to make sure that you're on the audio. Werner put up a lot of principles under the laws of frugal architecture that we wanted to kind of align and parallel in a positive way against all the things that this community is talking about. The interesting thing is that these guidelines and things he put up were really meant to be, I think, milestones, guide laws to being better at doing cloud. And arguably, they're really incompatible with the FinOps principles, which is something that's not lost in several of you. We saw some posts come out on LinkedIn. I'm going to hopefully not say the name wrong, but Borja Martinez post on LinkedIn about how well these things lined up. And one of the things that we're really happy about with working with AWS now, with Microsoft, with Google, with Oracle, all these cloud providers, is where we can start to do that lineup. On the Frugal Architect site, he's laying out these principles, and a lot of this stuff is carried through on FinOps.org to provide playbooks for where you can start to align to business value. We're going to talk later about the KPIs working group and the work they're doing that's released this week. We're going to hear about the commitment-based discount group around rate optimization and a matrix for decision making and how that pulls together. And I think what we're going to see happen, and Rob Martin from our team is going to talk about later, is how the FinOps framework is evolving, not just to have principles and ideas, but really concrete examples for architects, for engineers, for finance to do this work in their everyday lives and to build that culture of accountability. So definitely take a look at that website, look to see where that lines up with the FinOps framework. And Udam's our chairperson of the working group for Focus, former head of FinOps at Citi, engineering background. Udam, I wanted to get your take on this from an engineering perspective, because I think a lot of what we saw with Frugal Architect was really talking about I would say the engineering persona that we call in FinOps. What was your view?
Yeah. And I felt like, actually, let me just very quickly, for those that don't know Werner, he's the CTO of Amazon. I think many people that are not familiar with AWS might not know him, but super well known in the space. He's been there from the beginning of the cloud revolution. So when he spoke and talked about cost for half of his two-hour keynote, I was stunned. It was really great validation, as JR said. I felt like what he did was really localize a lot of these concepts to engineers, where it really kind of used the terms and tools and practices that we as engineers use day to day to really make us understand that this is not somebody else's job. It's it's really adds just as much an engineer's job as FinOps kind of team and other areas. So I really liked how he talked about the concept of trade-offs, for example. He kind of mentioned like tier 1, 2, and 3 types of services. He kind of really hit home with, on Amazon.com, what do those tiers mean? And then, what does that mean to run one of those services? Maybe if it's a tier 3 thing, maybe you don't need to provide the same level of availability or latency or other things, which then tie back to the cost of running those services. So I thought it was really awesome to kind of get that validation and hear all those same things that we've been promoting on the FinOps side for the last few years. And then finally, I'd say that concept of a frugal architect. I mean, that's what, as FinOps teams, we try to enable in our organizations, right? So that's not just like a single person inside of a company. It's everybody that's an engineer that's consuming public cloud that needs to kind of follow these principles. And what the central FinOps team does is enable that across not just AWS, but across all of the costs that are being incurred in the cloud to make the right trade-offs and the right choices in terms of consuming. So yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Uttam. And we're getting some great music from somewhere in there. We're going to try and mute here in just a minute. Hope that's not coming through too much. Actually, it might be from me, huh? Let me make sure that's not me. 1 second. Okay, cool. So with this, I wanted to pass to Rick and Bowen from AWS to talk a little bit about the announcements that came out of reInvent and a little bit of the context behind those announcements. Rick, Bowen, over to you.
Great, thanks, JR. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the FinOps teams to put together this summit and inviting us. We want to use this time to kind of talk about this overview of all the reInvent launches that were just made available last week at the 2023 reInvent. So for years, all of you have told us that you really won't have this single pane view to understand your organization's cost and usage and the savings and AWS recommendations, right, all in one place. And also you want to do so, but still have the options to customize the preference settings, the granular data, so you can incorporate your business requirements. And for a lot of the launches that were just made available last week are our responses to some of your requests. So now we have this new unified billing and cost management console where you can quickly gather highlights of your cloud financial management health and any alerts and recommendations from AWS all in one place for your organization. And also you have this site navigation experience for you to quickly jump to the right tools for your job. In AWS Cost Explorer, now you can conduct multi-year analysis with this extended look back period of historical data. And you also have this granular resource level data for all AWS services in Cost Explorer for you to visualize and analyze any cost anomalies. You can now customize and generate recurring data exports to your Amazon S3 buckets in CSV or Parquet format from your new cost and usage report 2.0 table. And for those of you who would like to have this interactive dashboard experience in QuickSight, you can now directly deploy this new pre-built cost and usage dashboard in QuickSight directly from your billing and cost management console. For free tier users, you can now track pragmatically of your free tier usage against your monthly limit with this new get free tier usage API access. So you can either turn off certain usage when they exceed free tier usage limit, or you can prepare when you need to transition to the pay-as-you-go pricing. And app registry resource tags are now integrated with AWS cost management tools. That means when you define your applications in AWS Service Catalog app registry, all the resources that are associated with your applications will have this cost allocation tags automatically enabled in cost management tools such as Cost Explorer, budgets, and cost anomaly detection for you to manage, visualize, and basically detect any unnecessary spend that is associated with your applications. Rick, you want to talk about cost optimization related launches really quick?
Yeah, thanks, Bowen. So we launched 2 features in the optimization space. We launched the Cost Optimization Hub, and we launched customization capability in Compute Optimizer. So the hub is the ability to see all of your cost savings recommendations all in a central place. That's important because we heard from customers, hey, we're not sure which recommendations we should take, how much savings we get. So we wanted to bring it all together into a single user experience. And then all the savings numbers are deduplicated, so that way you don't double count savings from different methods. And then the customization preferences in Compute Optimizer, our default recommendations are pretty conservative and safe by default, and that's intentional, right? And so customers have said for a long time that they want the ability to tune the recommendations to get a little bit more aggressive and higher savings amounts, but also they want visibility into how the product works and what settings are default when you are looking at recommendations. So not only did we provide the ability to adjust and tune the recommendations, but now there's a lot more visibility on what those default settings are. So now you can convince engineers a little easier that the recommendations are safe and trustworthy.
Okay. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at this AWS Billing and Cost Management Console again. Jerry, if you press again, we have some callouts. So basically within this console home, you now have this widgetized treatment of all the KPIs you will need to know in order to understand where to focus on and prioritize the actions, right? You can understand your spend pattern from the cost summary widget to understand your spend to date for this month, where you can compare with previous month's spend and forecast spend. You can pay attention to any cost issues that require attention for your cost monitor widget. For example, if there are any budget alerts detected or any cost anomaly alerts that you need to pay attention to. You can zoom in to understand whether there are any discrepancies of your cost and usage within specific dimensions with the cost breakdown widget. And for those of you who want to understand more cost saving opportunities, take a look at savings opportunities widget to see if there are any suggestions from AWS for you to increase your savings plans coverage rate, for example, or any latest generation Graviton you can migrate to. And this side navigation to the left, we have consolidated and grouped all of the billing and cost management tools by use case, right? You can understand things such as budget and planning and pay, billing and the payments better. And this side navigation experience will be available throughout all the billing and cost management console pages. So you can quickly transition from pages to pages and find the deep links to the right tools for your job. Next slide, please. So now with the latest launches from AWS Cloud Financial Management product teams, you will realize that you have a lot of the different options for you to improve the visibilities in your cost and usage data, right? So our recommendations is that you start from the billing and cost management console, where you can gather highlights and recommendations for you to prioritize actions for the day and month. And have this navigation experience for you to transition different consoles and specific tools. And when you are ready to analyze your cost and usage data, you can use AWS Cost Explorer, right? You can zoom into kind of the very granular resource level data for all AWS services now. You can understand any top spenders, right? Any specific resources that are responsible for any cost spikes, or any cost anomalies at the granular resource level. And now with this availability of 38 months of historical data, you can also quickly spot your quarter-over-quarter, year-over-year trend for up to 3 years, right? And both the resource level data and 38 months of historical data are offered for free. But if you want to share your cost reports with your stakeholders that may not have access to the console, in order to use Cost Explorer, think about this new cost and usage dashboard in QuickSight experience, right? So you can quickly deploy this QuickSight dashboard without worrying about managing this underlying infrastructure such as Amazon Athena views or AWS Glue crawlers. You will be able to have this pre-built dashboard that is inspired by Kudos dashboard. For many of you who have deployed our Cloud Intelligence dashboard, which is our open source solutions in the past. So now you have this pre-built Kudos-like dashboard that you have billing summary views and month-over-month trends in any specific product family specific views, right? such as compute, storage, and database and data transfer and networking, all in that QuickSight environment. You can integrate with third-party data sets or leverage QuickSight's existing functionalities to add additional analysis, or even leverage Amazon Q to have this natural language search there. And finally, for those of you who like to download the most granular cost and usage reports, either to integrate with third-party data or embed into your own BI solution analytics tools, definitely leverage our billing and cost management data exports. So with that, you will be able to control what data gets to be included in each export with column selections and row filterings, both in a SQL interface and a console experience. From this new cost and usage 2.0 table, right? A lot of heavy questions about what is this CUR 2.0 table. So rest assured that the CUR 2.0 table still provides you the most granular billing and cost and usage data, just like the legacy CUR, but it gives you two additional columns, the payer and the usage account names. And it has this very fixed data schema, so you can actually maintain the data ingestions, and also gives you a queryable options from this nested data structure. So we also improve the data sparsity for this CUR 2.0 table. So we definitely encourage you to try this out when you create your own data exports. Rick, you want to share some of the cost optimization launches?
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead and advance the slide.
Next slide.
Yeah, next one more here. There we go. So to dive a little deeper on the two optimization launches, so the cost optimization hub, this is designed to pull all of the optimization recommendations from all of the various products that you know and use today. So you're seeing in this product, the savings plan recommendations, RI recommendations, right size recommendations, idle recommendations, right? So you don't have to navigate to each and every one of those individual products and look at the recommendations. It's all in a centralized location for you. And we also built a unified single API with a single schema. So all recommendation types fit into that single schema. So that's going to make it easier if you want to build your own dashboards as well, that all of that data is in a single API. You can group by service, by account, by tag, by resource type, by all of these different dimensions. So you can kind of break down the data depending on what type of optimization you're ready for. You know, some organizations are not ready to tackle right sizing. You want to just focus on discount purchasing and idle, for example. Some organizations are ready to tackle the combination of discounting and right sizing together. Obviously, you know, that leads you down a path of much higher total savings potential. But no matter where you're at in your journey, whether you are crawl, walk, or run, you can configure this page to show you the savings potential for the optimization methods that you're comfortable with, right? And so the product should grow with you as you enable and get after more of those optimization methods. And so if you click on that view opportunities, you're going to see a list view of all the recommendations. Sorry, you're going to see a list view of all the recommendations below, and then you can sort and filter. So if you like RIs instead of savings plans, or if you like savings plans instead of RIs, right, you can filter out the certain resource recommendation types that you do or do not want, depending on your approach to how you do optimization. Just short plug, you know, please use savings plans instead of RIs. We don't, the added complexity of individual management of discounts with RIs is difficult, and that's why savings plans are something we really like customers to adopt. And the other feature, so compute optimizer, like if you've all been watching the What's New feed for AWS for the last year, you've probably seen just the overwhelming number of improvements and launches we've had in compute optimizer. I gotta say, it's been really fun. The idea and ability for us to launch a lot of free features to help people save money is a really fun job. And so we have a very large team of people that work tirelessly to build features to help you save more money. And now we offer a brand new option of 32-day look back period in the right size recommendations. This was a really fun feature to launch. We expect most people would prefer 32-day defaults when you get right size recommendations. So we're already seeing pretty good adoption on this one, but this allows all of the right size recommendations you get to use 32 days of historical data. It is still a default to 14. So I do encourage you, if you have Compute Optimizer enabled, go in there, set your look back period to 32 days. The recommendations will refresh. those recommendations will now be based on a month of data. So the recommendations will encapsulate all of your monthly behaviors like patching and reboots and maintenance and that sort of stuff. And now you can see for CPU, default, we're using 99.5th percentile. We call it a threshold. And now you can adjust that. You can now pick 95th percentile or 90th percentile. So you can kind of play around with it. We put a little demo graph in there. That's actually not a real utilization graph. It's just a graph that you can play around with to see, as you adjust threshold and headroom, how the product is going to behave. And so headroom, for example, is the amount of utilization buffer we add on top and into every recommendation we give. So you can now adjust it up and down. And so if you have applications that are really sensitive to peak, you can add more buffer. And if you have applications where savings is more important, you can reduce it down. So all of those controls are now available to you for free, and you can go adjust and tune your recommendations to hopefully help your engineering counterparts remove all of the reasons why they claim they cannot take actions. So that was our intention behind the whole launch. And feel free to reach out with feedback for us. And thank you so much for a fantastic reInvent. The feedback we got on all of our launches was just absolutely incredible. And it was a lot of fun launching all of these new products. So thank you, everyone.
Rick, Bowen, thank you for all the work you've been doing to integrate into this community, both virtually and at reInvent. So one of the takeaways for me, and this is why we have this on screen, and those of you who aren't looking at the screen, please pull up your camera and take a shot of this survey. One of the interesting things was talking to folks like Rick and Roy and these PMs and Bowen who are looking across the whole strategy and getting the deeper context of why they built the features and what's behind them, and things like account name being in there and how impactful that is in the Kerr 2.0. So what we're going to do as foundation in going forward in 24 is we want to do deeper dives across all the clouds into the relevant FinOps features that matter. So we're asking you as a community to take this survey real quick, pull out your phone, hit the camera, select which of these features are most interesting for you that you want a deeper dive on. And we're going to follow in the next month or two with some additional deeper content with interviews with the relative or respective product managers and product teams associated with these, so you can hear more of the history, more of the context. We're looking to do the same for Microsoft features, for Google features, et cetera. So please fill it out. And if you stay on to the end of this call, we'll tell you at the end of this call which of these were the most interesting features, which I think the AWS folks are going to be interested to hear about as well. There are some calls to action here as well for that team. Breakout sessions for reInvent are on YouTube. There's a link there. They've got documentation available. And as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at these deeper dives with product managers. It's a big part of our strategy next year to help you, the practitioners, better understand what you're getting from the cloud providers. With that, as always, we want to thank our governing board. This is a set of folks made up of practitioners from big organizations like Target, Walmart, MasterCard, Capital One, et cetera. It's cloud providers. We have the top 3 cloud providers all on here now. It's consultancies and key platforms in the space. These people help us drive the direction of the foundation. And one of the things we want to touch on this summit is some of the bits we're working on for next year. I'm going to do this fast because we're always short on time, but a quick review on our 23 programs. Community grew to about 14,000 people this year. The majority of them are in North America at the moment, 44%, with decent coverage in terms of certifications. But we're now seeing Europe growing very quickly as well, about 32% of the community, Asia Pacific and Japan coming up and growing there. And Latin America is almost 10% of our community now. The really notable thing about Latin America is the growth rate. 80% year over year. So seeing a lot of activity in Brazil there in particular, and looking to do more in all of these regions. Joe Daly, can you take a minute to share some context about the regions and the programs? 23.
Absolutely. And just a note for any Latin American folks on the call right now, I've felt your growth all year long. So put a +1 or an hola in the chat so we can all see you. Their embrace of the community has been amazing. So it's just been like that globally. And we're really trying to meet all of you where you are so that we can engage with you as a community. We introduce a number of new or updated programs. Our meetups have really been taken off this year. The FinOps assessment, FinOps landscape, the FinOps B series has been really impactful. Community member calls. These are virtual calls where it's just connecting time. There some of the calls have content and presentations. Others are just in North America. I just throw up a Menti poll, say, how do we want to start the conversation off? And we go from there. US Midwest region, my people, go crew. We had some pretty hot takes in our call, and it's just been fantastic ways to connect with you all. I'm looking forward to another big year, and let's keep it going.
Thanks to Joe and Ruben and William and Rodolfo and all the community leaders in those areas. And Stacy, what's the latest on training? I see some numbers getting big here.
Yeah. So training's been really exciting this year. You can see by all those new badges that we have up there, or those new things, that we've added a lot of training, not only just badge training and education, but we've also added some community education as well to help support our communities and the programs that we run. The things that I really want to call out, and some stuff I think we really need to be very proud of as a community, is as a community, we have awarded $625,000 in training scholarships this year. That's this year. And to be clear, that's through November. And we took 1 month off. That has reached 895 people in 59 countries. So when we talk about globally supporting people and making sure the right people are getting the training, this is it. And this is how we're able to do that. The other thing I just want to call out is that we did just launch the FinOps Certified Engineer course. Highly recommend you go check this out at learn.finops.org. I saw so many of you say that for 2024, one of your goals is to get certified. You have options now. You could be practitioner, you could be engineer, or then even work towards your pro certification. Also, don't wait. Go ahead and start now on that certification, because, Jared, if you want to go to the next slide, folks, we had a goal this year to see if we can get 10,000 people FinOps certified practitioners by the end of the year. I am here to tell you that we are less than 100 people away. As a matter of fact, we're only a little over 50 people away from meeting this number. The 10,000th person to get certified is going to get some huge accolades from us, plus also receive credit for future training. So maybe that could be pro, maybe that's engineer. So for those of you that have been sitting on your practitioner certification thinking I should get to that, the time is now. I would even go this week, because I have a feeling by next week we're going to meet that, maybe not. But I would encourage all of you to go out there and get that certification if you've been thinking about it. And now is the perfect time, and there could be a little special something for you. So very exciting. Good job.
Amazing to see those numbers grow. Yeah, I think you remember at FinOps X, there was only about 6,000, I think, and that was not that many months back. So yeah, folks, please definitely see if you can help encourage everybody to hit that goal. Working groups, we're going to talk a little bit about these in more detail. Tons of outputs. Big shout out to Samantha White on the team, who has been shepherding so many of these through. I think we had almost 25, maybe more working group outputs this year around a lot of areas. A couple key ones that I wanted to highlight, and you should definitely go check out on the website. FinOps KPI library has been a big one to help you benchmark against various what others are doing, both at a individual cloud level, at the FinOps organization level. The commitment-based discounts paper is also a really great one around kind of what I consider one of the darker arts or sciences, I guess, of FinOps, which is how to make the right commitments, the nuances, the considerations to reserves, instances, savings plans, committed use discounts, depending on your cloud. And not only how to do that, but how different people in the organization should be involved in that. So take a look at those on the website as well. Also highlights I want to bring in here were the cost anomalies paper, which I was thinking of anomalies as kind of the beating heart a bit of identifying when you have an issue that needs FinOps attention. So some interesting things there around how to integrate that into your organization, gamification guide and stories. One of the key ways to get traction in your FinOps practice, originally ways to get motivation, incentives, and some real world stories about how gamification can work. And to the point of the frugal architect, this is also a popular paper, Architecting for Cost. This talks about how to get the considerations earlier on and also getting into considerations at the infrastructure and application layer. So check out these pieces going forward. We're going to talk a little bit about next year's working groups here toward the end. But hey, Andrew, can you give a shout out on these breakouts from X and any context around these? I think
for sure.
Pieces.
Yeah, first of all, just a huge thank you to everyone who contributed. We know it's not easy, and we appreciate all that extra hard work on top of your day-to-day. What was really amazing, besides seeing the just diverse swath of people from our community, was that these things just keep adding value over time. When I was looking for X23 content, I kept seeing X22 stuff still providing value to everyone. And that just goes to show how these stories, this expertise that you all share with one another are long-term investments back to one another in the community. Somebody is where you are at a year ago, when they're just starting on their journey. Someone's always starting from somewhere, and it makes me feel very proud to be working with everyone and creating such an inclusive space where we're creating a means for anyone to start their FinOps journey from wherever they may be. So keep on keeping on, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks for all the work to get those out there. And yeah, look at that top of the list. Shout out to Ellie Whitman. She's got the top talk, and that is a great one, talking about savings or spend reduction. So check out that and all the others on the YouTube. FinOps open cost and usage specification. You've heard a lot about this in the last few months. We did launch the 1.0 preview of this. The great and exciting thing where I can spend a lot of time on this call is what we're now starting to see adoption of the cloud providers. At reInvent, the Kudos dashboard was announced supporting this. We saw EVP at Oracle talk about their commitment to it. We saw Jimin from our governing board at Microsoft talk about how they've got a private preview now of Focus exports. We see Sarah McMullen from our TAC at Google Cloud expressing a lot of excitement about their work here. We're looking forward to all of this starting to hit in 24 as the cloud providers adopt it. And if I look at that CUR 2.0 announcement and the template-based approach that's coming out where they can now change the schema, I'm hoping that'll be a quick path to get a Focus export there as well. So all of you start looking at the Focus guidelines and specifications at focus.finops.org, and please provide feedback on what you'd like to see there. So with that, I want to pass to Rob Martin for two things. One is talk about what we're doing on the framework and the definition of FinOps, but then also get into that AI panel that we've been running. Over to you, Rob.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just I'm going to make this part of it quick because I do want to spend a bunch of time on the AI panel. There are a bunch of changes that are going on. As we all know, FinOps is an evolving discipline and framework, and so part of that evolution is updating based on your feedback, based on the feedback of our working groups, the components of the FinOps framework over time. This FinOps definition has been, the old FinOps definition has been in place for a couple of years, and this new FinOps definition has just been approved by our Technical Advisory Council, who are the ones who review and approve all of the changes to the framework that we publish on the website. This should feel very familiar to those of you who've been doing FinOps for a while. It is a slight restatement in some ways, but it really highlights three of the main concepts, or three of the big key points that we're evolving into, and that is the maximum business value, the focus on value over spending that we want to see in FinOps practices. Secondly, the accountability that we want to build through that collaboration. We've always talked about the collaboration between engineering, finance, business, and other related teams, allied teams within our organizations. It's really the cost accountability and the usage accountability that we want to instill there. And last, that familiar item, focusing on being able to make timely, rapid, data-driven decisions about our spending and about our usage over time. If we go to the next slide, this will be the familiar framework slide that many of you have seen. And so the definition is only a part of that. As we go down through, we're taking a look at all of the different parts of the framework over time. And there are a couple that we're going to be making some fairly big changes to in this coming few months. Going to the next slide, those will be the personas largely, and the domains and capabilities. And what's driving this change are four kind of key things. The cloud, again, that focus on cloud value over cost. We're trying to build that into not only the definition, but also the capabilities and the practices that we do in FinOps. Secondly, we wanted to simplify this. We're seeing increasingly people coming to the foundation, thousands of new people coming to the foundation over the past years who are saying, not necessarily I've been doing FinOps for 5 or 10 years, and now I know that it's called FinOps, but people coming and saying, I've been asked to do FinOps in my organization. I'm stepping into a FinOps role that I haven't done before, and I need to understand the FinOps practice and how to do that effectively. So we're trying to simplify and clarify the language and the capabilities, and also the structure of how the FinOps framework is putting that together. And we're evolving elements of the framework over time. One of those is the core personas. We've always dealt with the product, engineering, practitioner, leadership finance and procurement teams, but we're also seeing a need to expand that to cover other personas in our organizations who are supporting or relying on the FinOps practice to do. This is a draft work in progress that's in front of the TAC right now. And so this is being reviewed by them and will be presented on the FinOps website as we get these things approved by them. And then, as always, this information is available for your comment. This remains an evolving framework. So this is a preview of the new FinOps domains and capabilities. So you'll see, if you're familiar with the old framework, that understanding cloud usage and cost is still there. Quantifying business value really takes into account some of those real-time decision-making and performance tracking and benchmarking things that we had in the past version of the framework. We've combined our usage and rate optimization into a single domain called Optimized Cloud Efficiency. And then last, we've started to focus on managing the FinOps practice. So not only are we organizationally aligning with what we're doing in FinOps, but we have to manage the FinOps practice. We have to manage its operations, its use of tools, its use of assessment and other practices there, and its integration to those other allied personas that are out there. So this is going to be a big set of changes to the framework. We're hoping to do this make this more of an annual process, so that the next year's updates are not so big. But this will be announced and pushed out onto the website over the next couple of months, and then we'll see those changes reflected in our training, in our assessment, in our landscape, and the other things that are presented on the website over time. And with that, okay, we're going to skip right to the AI.
Yeah. So I just want to give
panel.
folks the context. We got about 15 minutes left. We're going to get in the AI panel and transition that straight on into the after-time conversation. So anybody who wants to stay around and continue this conversation, we can, and we'll post a couple links and updates in there. And after the panel, we'll share some of that data around the top features that people wanted to see as to deep dives on.
Perfect. So today, I'm lucky to lead this topic. This may be a topic that many of you haven't heard about. It's called artificial intelligence. I'm kidding. Since we recapped reInvent earlier, I'll steal a talking point from my second favorite podcast, the Cloud Pod, that counted the number of times AI was mentioned in the reInvent keynotes, and it was 204 times that somebody said AI. So this is a big topic, and there are really two ways that AI is intersected with FinOps. It's how can I use AI to help me do FinOps? That's a great question and a fast evolving application. But the other side of that, I think, has been the area we've focused on how can we as FinOps practitioners manage AI costs in our organizations. All of our organizations are probably experimenting and starting to implement AI. So we've invited three practitioners to discuss that with us today. Shannon from CCC Intelligent Solutions, Sean Stevenson from Fidelity, and David Lambert from Adobe. And I'll just point out that Shannon's one of our 92 FinOps professionals. Let me just get started with you all. AI is an incredibly broad term. So how are you on your FinOps team seeing AI costs show up? What are the kind of categories of AI costs for a typical system, if there's a typical system? Shannon, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll start off with this one. So in our case, there is no typical AI system. We've been running production AI workloads since 2018. So what we have is really three classes of AI spend in our organization. First would be our training costs. So this is a mix of on-prem dedicated GPU and storage that we have for training our models, as well as expansion into cloud providers for sort of burst. And we have been bursting a lot over the last 2 years. The role of FinOps here is really to validate assumptions and to work with the team and finance to make sure that we can make the business case, the business value needed to go into cloud for continued training. The second type of AI workloads that we have is our inference. So this is actually when you're running data through the models in production environments to get a prediction. This is where I have had the most impact as a FinOps practitioner in working with our teams. So whether it's working with them to pick the right GPU to run their inference on, in one case, I was able to save the team about 60% just by changing the GPUs that they were leveraging in order to run inference. Or if it's working with our product teams and engineering teams together to say, what is the SLA we need to give? What do we need to meet for our customer? And what's the price point to get to it? Sometimes we've actually found that running inference on CPU will allow us to meet our customer SLA and dramatically cut the cost that we need to run our inference workloads. So this has been a very complex problem for us, especially as we've expanded into a couple dozen of AI models that are running in production, both as multi-part ensembles and standalone instances. And then the last type of AI, and I think this is the one that was very hot last week at reInvent, is generative AI. So for us, this is a drop in the bucket in terms of what our AI spend is. We have teams doing hackathons and internal POCs using OpenAI, Bedrock, and other AI services. I expect that this is going to be something emerging just based on some of the really cool projects I've seen from our hackathons. But right now, it's not something that's massively on our radar as an area of cost concern, but I do expect that to change probably by Q2 of 2024.
Yeah, it's amazing how many services are out there and how many things that could be used by the different teams. Sean, are you seeing that same kind of a breakdown at Fidelity?
Yeah, we definitely are, right? And Shannon alluded to it a little bit, right? Bedrock's just come out and a lot of teams are starting to look at it. How can I use it? What models can I run through it? Things like that. But for us, it's a lot of look at data as well as instance usage. So, just to take it to its simplest level, right? You're moving a lot of data through, whether it's, S3 or even feature store, things like that in AWS. Stuff like that to keep an eye on as well is some of the stuff that we're seeing with our systems, and instance usage. And Shannon broke it down amazing, right? To start to talk about the different types of use for instances. We're primarily seeing a lot of training. So when you're running your models and running data through them, using that type of instance, as well as, don't forget that these are data scientists who are possibly, trying to figure out how to work through some problems in their notebooks and things like that, and using Jupyter and stuff like that. So a lot of our scientists are kind of running through problems and just using stuff like Studio and Canvas sessions and other things like that. So just getting to know some of those things and understanding how they're being used and who's using them, and then having those conversations about why they're using them can really lead you to a lot of different cost savings initiatives, as well as just general cost savings, just finding stuff that maybe, you can change, like Shannon said, right sizing, as well as looking at waste and stuff like that. So, just taking a look at what's being used, as well as how the instances are being used, is something that we're really trying to focus on.
That's great. David, you're at Adobe, you guys use a ton of AI for different purposes. Is managing the cost of building and running these AI systems different? Are you doing anything different than managing other cloud costs, or are there big differences?
No, we're just letting it ride, seeing what happens. No, it is very different, right? It's similar. I guess the best way I'm kind of describing it is, obviously generative AI at Adobe has been huge. I think you've all probably, hopefully you've experimented with Firefly a little bit, but lots of cool tools out there integrated with all of our products across all of our product suites, which is really awesome. I think the best way I can kind of describe it is, when we all started this journey of FinOps back in migrating to the cloud, right? There was kind of a lot of unknowns. Anyone that says they're managing Gen AI and AI really, really well is probably lying to themselves a little bit at this point. I don't think anyone's doing it perfect. We're all growing and getting better and better at it as it becomes kind of normal and commonplace in our everyday world. But it's quite different in the sense of, like, there are capacity constraints and issues across the board, as well as high demand. So from our perspective, we really have to look at it in like business views and manage it, instead of being like very, very intense on right sizing and things like that. We have to think about what capacity constraints do we have, what expectations do we have of demand of our products, especially as we are releasing new and unique features and things into our products. And so the way that we have to manage it, I would say, is balancing that demand from a business perspective, as well as understanding what our performance and our utilization looks like. And we have a team that does a lot of that, as well as our FinOps team that helps to kind of assess cost and where things are going. But it's it's a different world a little bit than I think what we're used to, and kind of just being able to assess what you're using, if you're using it correctly, if there's differences that you can move around and change in order to more effectively use cloud. So it's a big shift, but there are similarities, I would say, that you can apply the same mindset and the same methodology from a FinOps perspective to get you where you need to go.
Excellent. John, I know you're doing a lot of the kind of looking at the allocation of how to do that. Are you seeing the same kind of things?
Yeah, I agree, right? It's dramatically different. You can really smash a budget real fast just by doing some of the models. And the crazy thing about it, right, is you might not get the convergence that you want. So like success criteria is huge. Just understanding, what you're going for and what you're really doing, and making sure the business case is solid is something that we're really trying to focus on. And I agree 100% with David, right? Like it's very difficult right now in this space to kind of manage. And, it's going back to crawl, walk, run, right? Like you might have been already at a run or at a jog or something like that. And now you're back to a crawl with AI, and especially just kind of figuring out these pieces and, trying to figure out where the data goes and how much data you need to put in. Is it millions? Is it billions into a model? And things like that are really something that we're trying to work through. And, governance and just partnering with the data science teams has been huge. And that's kind of something that we've done over the last year, is just really start to partner and trying to figure out, what models are we running, at what pace, when are we going to start to see an increase, what new language model are you going to run? Stuff like that, I think is good conversations to have, and just making sure that you're getting in front of those big spends, because an instance costs $30 an hour. And if you run it for a day or something like that, you're getting into some high numbers. So just knowing that stuff and making sure that other people kind of understand that is huge. But, I think that's the biggest point for me.
All right. Maybe I'll close with Shannon. Do you have any examples of ways you've been able to work effectively with your teams to either help them choose the right things or integrate AI into what they're doing?
So the biggest thing is they've been inviting me into product meetings right when they're sort of conceiving of the AI solution, so that they can walk me through how the models work, where the inflection points might be, and we can start planning out a load testing plan to see if we can, put something on CPU for inference rather than GPU. Are there different GPUs we should be testing? They're very much working closely with me to discuss what their cost implications will be of bringing a new product to market. Starting early rather than once we're putting something into development after it's already been trained has been key to getting some success on our end in terms of controlling costs of our prolific AI usage.
Yeah. David or Sean, any other cool stories or particular challenges?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, some of the challenges for us have been, just education, right? One of the things to think about too is as you're building your AI team, do you have a lot of junior members? Do you have a lot of, interns and other stuff like that? And just making sure that they understand, the usage and kind of just how things are being, life cycle management, stuff like that. I think that's been a big one for us and something just to keep an eye on.
And I would just add, in terms of challenges, one thing that I've had to work with our AI teams is that the cloud is not infinite, particularly when it comes to GPUs. So teams have had to work much more closely with our vendors, because sometimes our capacity demands have outpaced the capacity available in, say, US East 1. We have actually run US East 1 out of GPU SKUs in the past. So just the need to understand that you have to collaborate very closely with your vendor so that they know what your demands are going to be, so they can actually make sure they can accommodate those. And you need to be flexible and perhaps change regions, change your architecture, because the GPUs aren't necessarily always going to be there.
Wow. So we're back to the days of more hands-on capacity management. Yeah, in some cases.
Yeah, that's a great call out, Shannon. And one last piece that I would say is it's not trying to like hold the carrot and stick and just use the stick on this particular instance. It's be transparent and ask your teams to be transparent. One thing that's worked really well at Adobe is our team that manages a lot of our models and trainings and things like that. They're extremely transparent with us and willing to share in whatever way that we want want them to show us. And that's like, it's kind of getting back to the first step of all of this, of like transparent and visualizing what's happening. Then you can start to make decisions based on business needs and what you need to do, even from an architectural standpoint and capacity perspective. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's great. I'm sorry for the rush at the end here, but this is super exciting for me, and hopefully it's valuable for others. You guys saw on the screen before the AI working group that we have started has produced its first deliverable, how to forecast AI costs. So if you're interested in that, that focuses more on the large language learning model. But that's a first step, and I think one of many AI resources that'll be coming. There is a chat for AI and ML. If you've got questions, if you've got stories, if you've got deep experience managing AI and ML workloads, we would love to hear from you in that chat channel on Slack. Please join us there. And with that, I'll hand it over back to JR.
Great stuff. Thank you, everybody. We're going to leave the Zoom open for about 15 more minutes to do follow-up questions and things for panelists and anybody who wants to stick around. And we're going to share the results of that earlier Minty. Next time we hope to see your faces is February. Final date TBD. It'll be the third or fourth week in February, short month, I know, to show all the state of FinOps data that we've been collecting. So again, please, if you do one thing this holiday season, contribute to the community, go take that survey at data.finops.org. Have a great holiday for everybody who needs to drop off. I'm going to stop the recording, and please feel free to hang out and chat with the panelists and folks and see that survey data if you can stick around. JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.